What if I told you that the reason you're unhappy, anxious, or stuck in life isn't because of what's happened to you, but because you care too much about what other people think, that the invisible chain holding you back is not failure, not trauma, not fate, but the desire to be liked? In this audiobook-style episode of Let's Talk Psychology, we're diving deep into one of the most life-changing psychological works of the modern era. The Courage to be Disliked, co-authored by Japanese philosopher Ichiro Kishimi and writer Fumitake Koga. This book has transformed the way millions of people see themselves, their relationships, and their freedom. And by the end of this episode, it might just change the way you see your life too. According to Kishimi and Koga, every emotional problem you face, whether it's anxiety, resentment, guilt, or shame, stems from one source: your dependence on how others perceive you. They go as far as to say that there is no such thing as a purely internal worry. Even our deepest fears, they argue, are shaped by the shadow of other people. Our inner torment is almost always linked to the outside world, to what others think, might think, or once said about us. So if you constantly seek validation, if you suppress who you are to avoid judgment, if you shrink your ambitions to fit into other people's expectations, then this message is for you. Because Kishimi and Koga's radical premise is this: life is not complicated. We just make it complicated by refusing to let go of others' approval. Their solution: one deceptively simple phrase. To find true happiness, you must have the courage to be disliked. Let that sink in for a moment. Freedom is not being accepted. It's being okay when you're not. Kishimi and Koga argue that what you need isn't more confidence, it's more courage. The courage to live authentically, the courage to be misunderstood, the courage to walk your own path even when it means disappointing others. They explain that people who achieve this kind of inner freedom experience a profound shift. Their relationships lighten, their decisions become clear, their emotions stabilize. It's not that they stop caring entirely, but they stop depending on others' validation for their happiness. And here's the kicker: the courage to be happy includes the courage to be disliked. You cannot chase one without risking the other. The authors build their philosophy on the work of pioneering psychologist Alfred Adler, a contemporary of Freud and Jung, and the father of individual psychology. Adler believed that every person, no matter their past, has the potential to be happy. So what separates happy people from unhappy ones? It's not intelligence, not trauma, not personality. It's one thing: the willingness to change. Adler taught that the self is not made of fixed traits. Instead, it's a fluid, goal-oriented system. Your thoughts, emotions, habits, and even your unconscious patterns all serve a purpose. They help you achieve the goals you've set, even if you're not fully aware of those goals. And here's where it gets mind-blowing. According to Kishimi and Koga, your emotions don't happen to you. You create them to reach your chosen goal. Let's say you want a job. You're excited, but as the interview approaches, you're overwhelmed with anxiety. Most people assume the anxiety is blocking their success. But according to the authors, the anxiety isn't a problem, it's a strategy to avoid the interview. Because deep down, maybe your actual goal isn't to get the job. Maybe it's to avoid the possibility of failing the interview. And in that case, your mind creates fear to keep you away from risk. Another powerful and controversial point the authors make is about trauma. They don't deny that trauma exists, but they challenge the idea that trauma determines your future. You might ask, how can I be happy when I've experienced so much pain in the past? Kishimi and Koga's response is clear. Many people experience trauma, but not all of them remain stuck. Why? Because happiness doesn't come from what happened to you. It comes from what you choose to do now. The authors write, no experience is in itself a cause of our success or failure. We do not suffer from the shock of our experiences, but instead we make out of them whatever suits our purposes. This means we are not defined by what we've gone through. We're defined by the meaning we give to it. Yes, your past may have shaped your goals, but your goals, how you choose to live now, are still entirely up to you. You are not a prisoner of your past. You are the author of your present. If happiness is truly within our control, why doesn't everyone choose it? The answer, according to Kishimi and Koga, is both simple and uncomfortable, because unhappiness is often used as a strategy. We all feel disappointment or frustration at times. That's normal. But people who are chronically unhappy tend to use that unhappiness to reach a specific goal, whether they realize it or not. Here's an example. Let's say someone constantly talks about how hard life is and how misunderstood they feel. That emotional state may help them avoid responsibility, gain sympathy, or lower others' expectations. In that case, the unhappiness serves a purpose. It's not about blame, it's about ownership. You can't change something you don't acknowledge. At the heart of all this is one central question. What is your goal in your relationship? Kishimian and Koga argue that your happiness depends more on the goals you set for your relationships than anything else. According to them, there are two types of relationship goals. One, seeking approval from others, seeking to contribute to others' lives. The first leads to unhappiness. The second leads to freedom. If your goal is to be liked to gain approval, validation, admiration, then your happiness will always be fragile. It will rise and fall based on other people's moods and opinions. You'll live in fear of rejection. You'll mold yourself to fit expectations. And you'll slowly lose your sense of self. But if your goal is contribution, to offer value, to connect, to grow, you free yourself from needing to be liked. Your worth isn't determined by others' responses. It comes from what you bring to the world. So what does all this mean for you? It means that everything you're struggling with, your anxiety, your insecurity, your need to please, can be unlearned. You're not broken. You're not weak. You've just been living by someone else's rules for too long. You don't need to be liked by everyone. You need to be free. You don't need to be admired. You need to be real. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be present. And that kind of life, the one where you stop chasing approval and start embracing your own values, starts with one simple act of courage, the courage to be disliked. If this resonated with you, stay tuned. In the next episode, we'll unpack more of Adler's psychology, explore how to reshape your goals, and learn how to reclaim your power, not from others, but from within yourself. Leave a comment if something clicked for you. Let us know what idea stood out. And remember, happiness isn't found by becoming someone else's ideal. It's found by becoming someone you can stand proudly as, even when no one claps. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Psychology. Take care of your mind and have the courage to live freely. So if living for validation, seeking praise and approval traps us in a false identity and keeps us from being emotionally free, then what's really driving that need? Why do we cling so tightly to others' opinions, even when they're the very thing making us unhappy? Kishimi and Koga offer a powerful explanation. Humans don't seek approval as a means to find happiness. We find happiness in approval because it satisfies a deeper emotional need within us. It gives us a sense of identity, worth, and belonging, especially in a world where we're constantly measuring ourselves through the eyes of others. So where does this desire for recognition come from? According to Kishimi and Koga, one major source is the influence of reward and punishment education. From early childhood, we're taught to chase approval and avoid disapproval. We're praised for doing what's expected and punished or criticized when we deviate. Over time, this creates a system where external validation becomes our compass for right and wrong, for success and failure, even for self-worth. But here's the problem. Even when people do manage to gain approval, it comes at a cost. In their pursuit of validation, they often end up living their lives according to someone else's expectations. They start shaping their thoughts, their behavior, and their identity around how they believe others want them to be. And in doing so, they make a quiet but devastating trade. They sacrifice freedom for the illusion of acceptance. Kishimi and Koga describe it this way: to live one's life trying to gauge other people's feelings, to live in such a way that others' wishes are granted. There may be signposts to guide you this way, but it is a very unfree way to live. So here's the real question. Why are you choosing such an unfree way to live? You might say it's because you want recognition. But what you're really saying is this: I'm afraid to be disliked. This fear of rejection becomes the invisible thread that controls your life. And unless you're willing to accept that some people will not like you, unless you can let go of the need for universal approval, you'll never be able to live fully and freely. Because freedom comes at a price, the price of being misunderstood, judged, and even disliked. Here's another uncomfortable truth that Kishimi and Koga point out: even if you achieve approval, it's still not truly yours. Why? Because being praised simply means that someone else is judging your actions according to their standards, their rules, their value system. So when you chase praise, what you're really doing is adapting your life to someone else's yardstick. And in doing that, you put the brakes on your own growth and suppress your personal values. And worst of all, you're chasing something that might never even be attainable. Most of the time, approval depends on meeting someone else's expectations, which are often unclear, unpredictable, and always shifting. Sometimes, no matter what you do, no matter how kind, successful, or impressive you are, you simply won't be liked. That's the nature of human subjectivity. So what happens when people realize they can't win that game? According to Kishimi and Koga, they often give up altogether. When the pursuit of approval feels hopeless, unhappy people often shift goals not by rising above the need for recognition, but by masking their pain with self-sabotage. They stop trying, they become emotionally distant, cynical, or numb. But the truth is they haven't let go of the desire for approval, they've just buried it beneath frustration, fear, or shame. To justify this withdrawal, they start telling themselves a damaging story. There's something wrong with me. That's why I'll never be liked. And by clinging to this belief, they avoid the risk of further rejection. They'd rather preempt disappointment than face it again. But this strategy has a cruel cost. It deepens their suffering. Instead of freeing themselves from the need for approval, they entrench themselves in it even more. Now, they not only want approval, they also believe they're unworthy of it. They begin to feel powerless to change, trapped in the belief that they are inherently flawed. The result is a kind of learned hopelessness, where nothing they do feels like it matters anymore. The need for external approval doesn't just hurt your inner life, it damages your relationships too. The first way it does this is by turning life into a competition. When you view the world through the lens of recognition, you start seeing other people as rivals. If someone else is praised for being funny, smart, generous, or successful, you feel like you've failed in comparison. It's a zero-sum game. Their win becomes your loss. Why? Because approval is often conditional based on traits or achievements. And if someone else meets those conditions better than you feel threatened. This leads to envy or resentment, and even a hidden satisfaction when others fail, because their failure makes room for your validation. And slowly, without meaning to, you become unable to celebrate others. You become disconnected, even bitter. The second way this need for approval harms relationships is through entitlement. Unhappy people feeling starved of recognition often start to believe that they're owed something in return for their efforts. They think, I've done everything right. Why isn't anyone appreciating me? Kishimi and Koga offer a vivid example. Imagine someone throws a surprise birthday party for a friend, not just out of love, but with the unspoken hope that the friend will do the same in return. And when the friend doesn't reciprocate, they feel betrayed. But here's the truth: that act of kindness wasn't truly a gift, it was a transaction. This expectation of recognition leads to resentment. It poisons genuine giving, and it makes relationships feel burdensome, like everyone's keeping score. Now that we've seen how approval seeking creates suffering and disappointment in broken relationships, what's the way out? Kishimi and Koga offer a powerful alternative. Instead of seeking approval, live to be useful. That's it. Replace the desire to be admired with the desire to contribute. Truly happy people, the authors explain, don't obsess over what others think of them. Their joy comes from knowing they've helped whether or not anyone notices. They define their own sense of usefulness based on what matters to them. And once you discover what makes you feel truly useful, whether it's listening to a friend, creating something meaningful, caring for someone, or standing for a cause, then external approval starts to fade into the background. Because now your life is guided by purpose, not popularity. So let go of the chase. Let go of the need to be seen, liked, or validated by everyone. Instead, ask yourself, how can I serve? How can I give? What makes me feel useful even when no one is watching? Because when you shift from needing recognition to living with contribution, you don't just find peace, you find purpose. In the next section, we'll dive deeper into how living with contribution leads to authentic happiness and how this change in mindset unlocks the door to real fulfilling relationships. So if chasing approval only traps us in fear and disconnects us from others, what's the alternative? According to Kishimi and Koga, The answer lies in one simple but profound shift: contribution over recognition. Kishimi and Koga make this point clear. If you don't feel useful, you won't feel truly happy. But usefulness isn't about grand achievements or public recognition. It's not about titles, trophies, or how many people praise you. It's something much more personal, more grounded, something that comes from within. They explain that the moment you genuinely feel like you're contributing to someone else's life, even in small, unseen ways, the craving for recognition begins to fade. Why? Because you already know, deep inside, I matter. I'm of value. I'm of use. And once you feel that you no longer need others to validate your worth, it's not about going out of your way to be noticed. It's about knowing your presence already matters. According to the authors, anyone who's still obsessed with external recognition hasn't yet developed a true sense of what they call community feeling. The awareness that we are part of something larger and that our actions ripple into others' lives. Such a person hasn't yet found self-acceptance, learned to trust others, or discovered the quiet fulfillment of contributing without fanfare. One of the most liberating ideas Kishimi and Koga offered is this: happy people don't help others out of duty. They help others because it makes them feel good. At first glance, this might sound selfish, but the authors are clear there's nothing wrong with wanting to be happy. In fact, making your own happiness your life's purpose is not only acceptable, it's wise. Because when helping others brings you fulfillment, you naturally give more love, serve more. Not for applause, not for approval, but because it nourishes you. And this motivation, they argue, is far more sustainable than doing things simply because you believe you should. Why? Because doing good just to be seen as a good person is still a form of validation seeking. It's still rooted in fear. It's still a performance. But when you help others because it brings you joy, your contribution is pure, it's genuine, and it connects you more deeply to yourself, not just to the people around you. Here's another profound insight. Happiness doesn't require you to accomplish something extraordinary. According to Kishimi and Koga, just by existing, you can bring joy to others. Just by being present, by being yourself, by simply being there, you can offer something meaningful: comfort, connection, laughter, stability. Because humans are social creatures. We are wired to care about each other. Your existence, your energy, your perspective, your presence can be valuable, even when you're not doing anything remarkable. This belief changes everything. When you start to believe that your existence is enough, you unlock a new level of self-acceptance. You stop waiting to become someone better in order to feel worthy. You recognize that you matter right here, right now, as you are, even with your mistakes, your awkwardness, your uncertainties. Happy people embrace this idea. They know that even if they're not well adjusted by society's standards, they still have worth. They don't measure their value by how polished they look or how successful they seem. They measure it by their presence and their willingness to connect. Here's something that sets happy people apart. They don't feel threatened when others succeed. Unlike unhappy people who view life as a zero-sum game, where someone else's success means their failure, happy people believe there's enough value to go around. They celebrate others' victories because they understand that those wins don't diminish their own. Think about it: if you believe your worth depends on standing out or being better, you'll constantly compare yourself to others. You'll quietly root against them because their progress makes you feel small. But if you believe that everyone has value just by being alive, you stop seeing life as a competition and you start seeing it as a community. Happy people understand this deeply. They know that someone else's light doesn't dim theirs. They know that the tree of another person's success can actually enhance the collective energy of everyone around them. And so they cheer, they support, they uplift because they're secure in who they are. Another key difference between happy and unhappy people is how they experience time. Unhappy people tend to live in the future. They say things like, "I'll be happy when," or "once I achieve this, then I'll feel worthy." But Kishimi and Koga challenge this idea. They say, you don't need to achieve something great to be happy. You can choose happiness right now by recognizing the positive impact you already have. Of course, this doesn't mean abandoning your goals, but it does mean shifting your focus. You can still strive, still dream, still grow, but you no longer delay happiness until you hit some future milestone. Because if your life ended tomorrow, you wouldn't want to feel like you wasted it chasing a finish line. you never crossed. You'd want to know you found joy on the journey, not just at the destination. So what's the ultimate takeaway? It's this: no matter who you are, no matter what you do, some people won't like you. It's inevitable, it's out of your control, and it's not a reflection of your worth. Therefore, the only real path to lasting happiness is this: let go of the need for approval and find the courage to be disliked. Live a life you believe is good, even if it means disappointing others. Speak your truth. Follow your purpose. Trust your values. Because when you stop trying to be liked by everyone, you finally have the freedom to be yourself. And that's where real peace begins. If something in today's episode struck a chord with you, if you felt seen or maybe even challenged, I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes saying it out loud is the first step to changing it. Thanks for being here. This has been Let's Talk Psychology. Take care of your mind, and above all, have the courage to live freely.